Once upon a time, in the bustling city of Lagos, there lived a famous wig stylist named Madam Stella. Everyone knew her shop, Stella's Touch, a haven for women who sought to revive their old and worn-out wigs. Madam Stella's reputation was unmatched. Her skill at transforming tired wigs into masterpieces attracted customers from far and wide. Women from all walks of life trusted her with their wigs, swearing by her work and claiming their wigs looked brand new after just one visit to her shop. Madam Stella stood out as the best in the wig revamping business in the state. She received nothing less than 300 wigs daily and had a strict rule: customers were not allowed to bring more than one wig at a time, no matter how many they owned. Several customers offered to pay double for her services if she agreed to revamp more than one of their wigs, but Madam Stella stood firm. Little did they know that Madam Stella was no ordinary wig stylist. She wasn't revamping wigs to make them beautiful, she had a more sinister goal behind her services. One day, a customer named Amora dropped off her favorite wig for revamping. It was an old but expensive wig that she had cherished for years. 3 days later, when she returned to pick it up, Madam Stella handed it to her in a black bag, reminding her of the rule: do not open the bag until you get home. Amora obeyed, but the moment she opened the bag at home, she felt a cold chill run down her spine. At that instant, a call came through, informing her that the contract she had been pursuing for months had just been approved. Amora could not believe her ears. She stared at the wig and had a strong feeling it had brought her good luck. Overjoyed, she told her friends about what had happened, and soon they flocked to Stella's Touch with their wigs, eager to experience the same fortune. Word spread quickly, and Madam Stella's business boomed even more. Women whispered in salons and even at church meetings about how their revamped wigs from Stella's Touch changed their lives. Each customer received life-changing news immediately after opening their wig bag at home, making them believe Madam Stella was blessed with good luck. Every day, the line outside Madam Stella's shop grew longer. Socialites, traders, bankers, and even struggling students brought in their wigs, hoping to turn their fortunes around. Madam Stella accepted each wig with a smile, always reminding her customers of her strict rule: one wig at a time. Little did they know that Madam Stella harbored a secret no one could ever imagine. Every night, after the shop closed, Madam Stella retreated to a back room. The space was filled with bowls of blood-red water that glowed faintly in the dark. She would take the wigs dropped off by her customers and perform a secret ritual. Dipping each wig into the bowls, she chanted in an ancient language. As she chanted, water spirits awakened and attached themselves to the wigs. These spirits were powerful, granting temporary good fortune to whoever wore them. However, the fortune came at a price. It only lasted for a while before the spirits unleashed chaos, leaving the wearer in despair. Amora, thrilled by her newfound luck, experienced a series of incredible events. She was proposed to by a billionaire she met on a business trip. He showered her with lavish gifts, including a mansion and luxury cars. Amora became the envy of all as she bathed in her newfound life. However, as months passed, her luck began to take a dark turn. One day, as Amora returned home from work, she encountered a beggar by the roadside. Feeling generous, she offered the beggar some money, but to her shock, the beggar returned it, saying, "This money carries a darkness I cannot accept." The beggar's piercing gaze and cryptic words unsettled Amora. That night, she had a restless sleep filled with a vivid dream of being pulled into the depths of the ocean. She awoke drenched in sweat, unable to shake the feeling that something was terribly wrong. The next morning, Amora's misfortunes began to unfold rapidly. Her latest business deal fell apart, her mansion was seized due to her billionaire boyfriend's fraudulent activities, and her bank account was mysteriously emptied. Devastated, she returned to her old apartment, only to face further tragedy when she learned that her mother and brother had passed away in their sleep. As Amora pieced together the chain of events, she realized everything had started to fall apart after retrieving her wig from Madame Stella. Determined to uncover the truth, Amora decided to confront her. Late one night, she snuck into the shop through an open window and discovered a horrifying sight in the back room. Madame Stella was chanting over a bubbling bowl of blood-red water as shadowy figures emerged and were absorbed into the wigs. Amora froze in fear, finally understanding that Madame Stella had been using dark magic to bind malevolent spirits to the wigs, bringing temporary fortune followed by chaos. But demanded a heavy price, which was suffering and destruction. Amora quickly rushed out of the store, terrified by what she had seen. She could not risk being caught and knew she had to figure out a way to expose Madame Stella. Meanwhile, Madame Stella continued to revamp thousands of wigs, attaching water spirits to each one she walked on. One afternoon, a university student named Uni came to Madame Stella's store with her friend, Yola, to pick up her wig. She was so excited to finally experience the fortunes everyone had raved about. Her best friend, Doa, stood there and watched as Madame Stella handed the wig over to Uni, reminding her of the rule not to open the bag until she got home. Yola found this rule strange and couldn't help but voice her concern. Why must she have rules for everything? Didn't you pay for her service? Why must she dictate where and when you open your own wig? She asked. Uni brushed off her concerns as unnecessary. What if the wig turns out not to be yours? She added. Uni decided to go against the rule and opened the wig bag in front of Madame Stella's store. Immediately, she opened the bag. Yola watched as Uni turned into a strange fish right before their eyes. She screamed in terror as people gathered in front of the store, shocked at what they were seeing. Uni was now a fish, and Doa knew it had something to do with the wig. Madame Stella rushed out from her store, pretending not to know who Uni was or what Yola was talking about. After all, Uni wasn't her customer, and Madame Stella knew she could use this technicality to avoid suspicion. You are not my customer, young lady, Madame Stella said calmly, accusing Yola of trying to sabotage her business. Yola stood there, frustrated and unable to convince the crowd of what had happened. She watched as her friend struggled to stay alive as a fish, unsure of what to do. She immediately called Uni's sister on the phone, explaining all that had happened. But before Uni's sister arrived, the fish stopped moving. The fish was dead. Uni's sister, Ochi, broke down in tears, holding the lifeless fish in her hands. This cannot be true, Ochi whispered. There must be a way to fix this, she said, as the crowd grew larger, murmuring and pointing fingers. Madame Stella stood at the doorway of her store, furious. These girls have brought chaos to my shop with their lies. Can't you all see that they only want to bring me down, she said, accusing them of framing her. The people believed Madame Stella and began yelling angrily at Yola and Ochi. Seeing how agitated the crowd had become, Yola and Ochi fled the scene for their lives. The news spread all over social media, making Madame Stella the center of attention. While some questioned her mysterious rules, others defended her, claiming she was a victim of jealous competitors. The people trusted Madame Stella because they were desperate for change in Lagos, a city where appearances mattered. Many believed her wigs could transform their lives. Women wanted success, marriage, or respect, and Madame Stella seemed to offer an easy way to get it. Her rules were strange, but her reputation made people ignore their doubts. Stories of instant good luck and glowing reviews from famous clients made her seem like a miracle worker. The pressure to look good, succeed, and meet societal expectations was so strong that no one questioned her methods. To them, Madame Stella wasn't just fixing wigs, she was fixing lives. Videos of Uni as a fish began circulating, but people found it hard to believe. Many thought it was staged by Madame Stella's competitors to tarnish her reputation. Paradoxically, Madame Stella became even more popular. Her shop, Stella's Touch, became a national sensation as orders poured in from Lagos and across the country. Celebrities and influential figures publicly endorsed her services, claiming that her wigs brought incredible fortune. Madam Stella appeared on television shows, confidently dismissing the accusations as baseless rumors. She described herself as a hardworking woman unfairly targeted by envy. With her charming smile, she won over millions of supporters, ensuring her business thrived despite the scandal. However, as months went by, several women began experiencing bad luck after wearing Madam Stella's wigs. They dared not speak out, fearing backlash, especially given the strong support she received from celebrities and influential women. Meanwhile, Yola and Ochi refused to let the matter rest. They were determined to uncover the truth about Madam Stella and expose her evil activities. The death of Uni weighed heavily on their minds, and they knew Madam Stella was not the innocent woman she claimed to be. They began investigating by reaching out to other customers of Madam Stella, pretending to be journalists working on a story about the beauty business. Initially, many customers praised Madam Stella's work and claimed they had no complaints. But as Yola and Ochi dug deeper, they found a pattern of strange occurrences. One woman, who wished to remain anonymous, revealed that after wearing her revamped wig, she experienced a month of incredible luck. She became pregnant after 20 years of marriage, and her husband, who had been sick for years, miraculously regained his health. She was overjoyed as her life finally seemed to turn around. But then, everything fell apart. Her husband, now hale and hearty, suddenly slumped and died before her eyes on the same day she lost her pregnancy. "It's like something cursed me," she said, pointing to the wig now sitting in the corner of her room. "I've tried destroying it, but each time I do, it reappears in my wardrobe the next morning, completely untouched," she added, her voice trembling. "It feels like I'm trapped with it, and I don't know what to do." Yola and Ochi documented her story carefully, assuring her that they were working to uncover the truth and would find a way to stop Madam Stella. Another woman, Nkechi, shared her bizarre experience. She was desperate for a husband and decided to revamp her wig at Madam Stella's shop after hearing glowing reviews. According to Nkechi, her life transformed after wearing the wig. She met a wealthy man who proposed to her within weeks. They had a grand wedding, and she became the talk of the town. However, her happiness was short-lived. A month after their wedding, her husband began acting strangely. He grew distant and started talking in his sleep, muttering about water spirits and curses. Nkechi tried to ignore it, but one night, she woke to find her husband standing at the edge of their swimming pool, staring into the water. "I tried to stop him," Nkechi said, tears streaming down her face. "But he jumped in, and I couldn't save him. He drowned right in front of me." After her husband's death, Nkechi's life spiraled out of control. Her in-laws accused her of witchcraft and forced her out of the house. She was left homeless with nothing but her revamped wig, which she could not seem to get rid of. "Every time I try to burn or throw it away, it finds its way back to me," she said, showing Yola and Ochi the wig that had ruined her life. Yola and Ochi documented Nkechi's story alongside others, growing more determined to stop Madam Stella. They noticed a pattern. Every woman who wore a wig from Stella's touch experienced a brief period of unimaginable fortune, followed by devastating misfortune tied to water-related incidents and nightmares. One day, while leaving Nkechi's house, they encountered the beggar who had approached Amora earlier. Recognizing them, the beggar stopped to tell her story. She was the first victim of Madam Stella's evil scheme. The beggar revealed that she was once a wealthy woman with successful businesses, both local and international. One day, Madam Stella approached her at a shopping mall, claiming to be a hairstylist. Madam Stella pleaded for a chance to revamp her wig, promising to transform it into a masterpiece. Feeling pity for her, the woman agreed. Days later, she picked up her wig and, like others, experienced a wave of incredible fortune. Her businesses flourished beyond her wildest dreams, and she expanded into new markets. But soon, her life took a dark turn. "My eldest son drowned in the bathtub one night," she said, her voice trembling. "It was the beginning of the end for me. My businesses collapsed one after the other. I lost my home, my family, everything. This is what I've become, a shadow of who I was," she said, gesturing to her tattered clothes. Yola and Ochi listened intently, stunned by the depth of the beggar's suffering. "But why didn't you speak out earlier?" Ochi asked. The beggar shook her head. "No one would believe me. Madame Stella is protected by powerful spirits. She's twisted the narrative to make herself a beloved figure. However, I've been searching for a way to stop her for all these years, and now I believe I found it." Yola and Ochi exchanged a look of shock and curiosity. "What do we need to do?" they asked. The beggar explained, "Madame Stella's power is tied to the blood-red bows in her ritual room. These bows contain water spirits. Destroying them will sever her connection to the spirits and render her powerless. But the spirits won't give up without a fight. They'll protect their master at all costs." She paused, her face serious. "When that happens, I'll tell you both what to do. But be warned, it will be dangerous. This is the only way to stop her." Yola and Ochi, though terrified, knew that they had to act. They had seen enough destruction caused by Madame Stella, and they couldn't let her continue to harm people. When night came, the three women made their way to Madame Stella's store. They waited until the shop closed and snuck in through the back door. Moving quietly, they overheard a soft humming sound coming from the back room, knowing that Madame Stella was performing her rituals. They cautiously approached the room, peeking inside. Madame Stella stood in the center, her hands raised as she chanted in a strange language. Around her were the blood-red bows, each filled with floating wigs that sent chills down their spines. Seeing that Madame Stella was distracted, the beggar rushed to the largest bowl at the center of the room and splashed holy water into it. The bowl bubbled violently, and dark, evil shadows emerged, rushing toward them. The air thickened, making it hard to breathe. The beggar shouted, "These spirits have no power over those who reject them. Reject them now, and they will flee." Together, they shouted in unison, rejecting the spirits. Miraculously, the spirits released their grip on them, retreating back into the bows. Madame Stella screamed in frustration, her face contorting with rage as she tried to regain control of the situation. "So, you've come to ruin me," Madame Stella hissed, her voice filled with fury. The beggar stepped forward, standing tall. "You gave me good fortune at first, just like you did with these women, but it didn't last. Everything I worked for turned to ash. My company crumbled, my family abandoned me, and I was left with nothing. I was cursed to wander the streets, feeding on scraps, while you thrived on the suffering of others." Madame Stella laughed mockingly. "And yet here you are, still alive. A stubborn cockroach, clinging on to life. No one will ever believe you. They love and worship me. To them, you all are nothing but troublemakers, sent to bring me down." But before Madame Stella could speak again, Amora, who had been hiding in the corner and streaming everything live, stepped forward. She held her phone in her hand, capturing the entire scene. Madame Stella froze. Her eyes widened as she realized that Amora had been recording the entire confrontation. The live stream had been broadcasting, and thousands of viewers were watching everything unfold from the safety of their homes. "No! No!" Madame Stella screamed, her voice echoing through the room. In a panic, she tried to call upon the spirits to save her, but it was too late. The water spirits, now turned against her, dragged her into the largest bowl at the center of the room. The bowl began to glow, pulsing like a heartbeat, as Madame Stella's body was absorbed into the water. Her screams echoed briefly before they stopped entirely. The boughs around the room cracked and shattered, and the strange liquid inside them evaporated instantly. The entire place fell into a chilling silence. The spirits that had once been enslaved by Madame Stella vanished before their eyes. The beggar turned to Amora and the others. "We've done it. She's gone." But they didn't know that Madame Stella's power had come with a price. The water spirits had once made a pact with her, granting her success in exchange for her soul. The pact had warned that if her evil deeds were ever exposed, the spirits would claim her. Madame Stella had thought she could hide her dark activities forever, but, as they say, nothing hidden stays hidden forever. The beggar turned to Amora and the others, urging them to destroy Madame Stella's store to ensure that her evil would never return. They nodded, determined to end it all. The three women left the store and set it ablaze, watching as the flames engulfed Stella's touch. As the fire consumed the building, a large crowd gathered, drawn by Amora's live stream and the spreading news of Madame Stella's downfall. People whispered and murmured in shock, finally understanding the truth about the evil hidden within Madame Stella's wigs. The beggar, now free from the torments that had plagued her for years, turned to thank Yola, Ochi, and Amora for their bravery. In the days that followed, all the women who had suffered misfortune from Madame Stella's wigs began to have their fortunes restored. Amora's business boomed once more, and Yola and Ochi continued to mourn the death of Uni, whom they would never see again. Authorities launched an investigation into the countless complaints and tragedies tied to Madame Stella's wigs. Victims began coming forward, sharing their stories and warning others to be cautious of promises that seemed too good to be true. As for Madame Stella, rumors spread about her fate. Some claimed she had been trapped in the depths of the ocean, bound forever by the spirits she had once commanded. No one knew for sure what had happened to her. But what the people did learn was this: things are not always as they seem. They learned not to follow the crowd blindly, as often the path most traveled leads to destruction. They learned to always be cautious about who they trust with their personal belongings, for evil often hides behind beautiful faces and charming smiles. Never be desperate for anything in life, because desperation can blind one to potential dangers.